Welcome to REI University with Chris Mers, your premier destination for real estate investing insights. Join us as we chat with industry guests about their journey to success, highlighting the highs and lows of their real estate ventures. Get ready to learn from the pros and take your investing game to the next level.
Guys, all right? So without further ado, let's bring up our guest for the evening. Robert Harden is the man behind the shield here. He has closed 29 deals, all creatively, 15 of those sub 2 in the last 3 years. So really excited to bring up my good friend Robert tonight.
Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Yeah, dude.
Chris is like a complete rock star. I don't know, some of you probably haven't met him and spent time with him, but the fact that he's doing this and like donating, setting up the donations for charity, like it's such an amazing thing. I mean, that, and then you got your brokerage, you got your family, you got everything going on. So thank you for having me on, and everybody give him a round of applause.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that. Well, tonight is not about me. Tonight is about you. I mean, you're the one that brought this crowd here. So, I know you as, we've met, 3 years ago, really, when, I started hosting these things and started going to meetups. So I really know you majority for your real estate investing, right? And being part of the sub 2 community with Pace, being in the owners club, and, transacting on the real estate side. But before that, who was Robert Harden? Where did Robert Harden start?
Oh my gosh. So, if I go way back, like we were born in Montana. Like I was born in Montana. Sorry, the phone threw me off. And I got my parents here too, so it's really cool because my mom and dad are here.
Yes, that's
my
awesome.
Kiddo.
Yes.
And I got my brother-in-law and my sister.
Yes.
And we've had a family business for, forever. Like I grew up working with my dad every summer. So like hard work has just been a thing like in our family. Like my grandpa, insane hard worker. My dad's like the same, just like my grandpa, like crazy hard worker. So that hard work, got passed down to me, and I just love to work. So they would just put me in a direction. And
what were you doing? What kind of work were you doing in the summers?
Okay, so in the summers, my dad had a drywall business. So like I would go every summer working with him, and he would teach me to, like in the beginning, most of the stuff is just, bring the tools in, spot the nails, and then I got to graduate on to doing like patches and running some of the tools, like automatic tools and stuff. But I worked every summer, and they would give me goals, like, hey, I love baseball cards, basketball cards, and like I would work and we would go buy those, that's what we're doing. Like I collect, I still have them too. I have like a box of them. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I got to open them up. In fact, we did kind of open them up, and my kiddo was like dug through them. And I was like, those stay right there because I don't want you selling them on eBay. So worked every summer. And then I got licensed and bonded before I graduated from high school. I knew the path that I wanted to go. I wanted to start my own business. And my dad's partner at the time, he had a different partner, and that partnership fell apart. And then I got the opportunity to join my dad. I think I was 21 at the time. So before that, I was just running my own business with my cousin. So he came out from Montana too, and we worked every summer together, and it was just awesome.
So when did you move from Montana to here?
When I was 6, so I'm 47 now, so that's 41 years ago?
Okay.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
But I've lived in, Oregon ever since.
You were going to say Tualatin.
Yeah, Tualatin, yeah. Okay. I lived in Tualatin, and then I bought my first house in Molalla. So if anybody knows the area, that's how we say it. It's Molalla. Yeah. You're out in Molalla? Yeah. I learned that after one of our first big builders, because we have a drywall company, and when my dad and I first got together, it was just me and him and a couple people, and then we just grew the business. And I was living at home at the time. So we went from like sales of like $300,000 to like $1.5 million the next year. And then we went to like $3.5 million, and then we got to like $6 million. It all happened in a short period. And I was living at home, because anybody that's ever grown a business, like if you're trying to have that kind of growth, you're putting all your money back into it. So like I didn't make any money for like 3 years. Neither did my dad. Like we just plowed it all back in.
And so how big, as you're growing this business, how many employees do you guys have?
I think, well, right now we have like, I think it's like 30, my sister knows, 36-ish employees right now.
Okay.
And we're smaller than we were then, because like our business model shifted. I don't know if you guys know what happened in 2008. Is anybody familiar with 2008? We went from doing like 300 homes a month in 2008, and it went from 200 or 300 homes a month down to 30.
Like this is all new construction?
All new construction. Like we were just new construction. That was only our focus. We didn't do remodel. We didn't do restoration. None of that stuff. We're just all new construction. And then like the permits, building, everything just dropped off like a complete rock. And so we had to pivot. Like we had to shift gears. So we got into restoration, remodel. Like, do you need drywall? Like, where do you need drywall? Yeah. Like we just were anywhere people needed drywall. Like Fair. That was us. So we shifted gears after the 2008 crash. So that was a
and you guys made it through it.
Yeah, we did.
I mean,
our first the business we had was Kemper Drywall, and that one did not make it. It died out. So we actually shifted. We started Indigo Construction in 2012, and so yeah, Kemper Drywall didn't make it. We probably should have kept it because we could have. We just, when everything fell apart, all of our like our attorneys and it was such a dramatic shift. We had so many builders not pay us, and we racked up a huge bill with our supplier. It was just massive. It felt like we could not get our way out, but it was over $1 million worth of debt that we had just with our supplier.
Yeah.
And so we started Indigo, and we're like, our attorney's advising us. He's like, you should just file bankruptcy. Like that was his advice, but we didn't want to do that. We're like, it just doesn't feel right, because our suppliers, they're our friend too. It's like, does anybody know Kinez Building Materials? They're an amazing family. Like their family is just amazing. So we just put our heads down and worked and just paid it all off. It took like 5 years, but we paid them all off, paid all our creditors off, and dug our way out. So
wow, good on you guys.
Yeah, it was hard.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Yeah, because we went really quick. So what's the age gap between you and your sister?
Oh, we're only 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Older, younger?
Oh, I'm older. I'm the old one.
Okay. And so you guys were in Tualatin, and how was it growing up with your sister?
Oh, my sister's amazing. House? Well, you know what? I can only say good things about my sis. Like she's been there for me forever. Yeah, but no, it was really good. Tualatin is a great place to, as you know, like you know the area, so I love Tualatin. But
you went to Tualatin High School?
Yeah, Tualatin High School, and my kiddo goes to Tualatin High School.
Oh, yeah, that's great. And your parents are still together?
Yeah, they are. Surprisingly, because they somehow fight at times where.
Wow.
Do you want to get him to run out of the room? Just start.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah, when they start in, it's time to just, I'll just go to my office.
Oh, what great role models to have in your life.
Yeah.
And to be able to, I was actually, my parents were showing me a goal that I had, when I wrote, I think I was like 10 years old or something. And I wrote on it, in cursive at the time when I was writing cursive, I want to be an insurance man like my dad, and I want to work with my dad, right? And that just like broke my heart. I was like, oh shit, I never did that. But as fathers, like I would love for my kids to join me in my career. And so you did that with, your dad, which is like so cool.
Yeah. He really wanted that too with his dad. So they worked together too, but once, my grandpa was in Montana, and then, there's just not as much opportunity in Montana. They're on like the east side, super flat, like population. How many kids were in your high school?
50.
50?
50.
That was like the whole school though. Yeah, that was the whole school. Like, yeah. So he wanted more opportunity for us, so that's why they came out.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so what was there a reason that you guys moved to Portland from Montana, or just...
Yeah, my grandparents moved out. So my grandparents moved here. They were in Montana as well, and then they came out here first, and we visited them. This was like early 90s, and we got suckered in because, well, everybody knows, Oregon is so wet and constantly raining. Like we came out during a drought and it was so dry. It was green and dry. We're like, this is amazing. Then we move here and then we got slammed with the winters and we're like, why did we move here? Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. So you start the company with your dad, Indigo. And at what point did you have Max?
Oh my gosh, Max came along. She's 16 going on 35.
Yep.
So yeah, so that's 2000. That's real close to the crash. She was born in 2008. Okay. So like economy crashed and then like the best thing happened.
Oh,
so
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Right on, I love it. So tell me more about kind of after the crash, getting out, 5 years out, you guys are getting out of this debt and the economy's doing better. You guys are getting more business. And during this time period, you're obviously working a lot in real estate. Have you been investing in real estate at all during this?
No, because my whole investment journey, like I did the typical thing that most people do. They buy a house and they know that real estate is a great path, but you don't really know how to go about that path or what you should do. So I just did the typical thing. Like I bought a new place. I'm like, well, I don't want to sell the other one. And I heard that renting it is a good idea. So I just rented out my first place. And, by the time, I think I got my last rental that way in 2020. That was the last time. But I'd been researching like real estate investing because everything I do, I just get tunnel vision on and I get so focused that like all I can see. So get really, really dialed in. But I went down the path of looking into, like, I learned about wholesaling, and I was just like fascinated with wholesaling. Like, oh my God, you can actually go lock up a contract and go sell the contract to somebody, and someone's going to pay you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. Like, I was fascinated by that. So I joined Wholesaling Inc. At the time, was Cody Hoffine was the face of it. Now it's Brent Daniels, the TTP guy. But I joined with Cody Hoffine, but their whole thing was mailers. Like, they wanted you to do mailers. And I did the mailers. I think we spent $15,000 in mailers and got 0 deals. Yeah. Well, they teach you how to do the marketing, but they don't really teach you how to talk to sellers.
How to close.
Yeah. So I had a ton of conversations, but I didn't know what to do with them. Like, it was very, it's very awkward conversations. Went on a lot of appointments. Didn't know what to do with any of it. So just that whole thing just kind of nothing came of it, except for I met a ton of wholesalers. So I met a ton, and I met Brad from Discount Property Wholesaler, and we bought our first deal in 2020. It was a single family house on 2 lots, and then we developed it and turned it into a duplex. And during that process, I learned like 8,000 lessons. So if anybody's going through that, I can tell you how not to do it, because like we literally, this duplex, oh my God, if you see it in Salem, this will describe it. Like, there's all these small houses around it, and then we have this monster duplex you can't comp because it's twice the size of any other duplex within like 5 miles. And so yeah, we overbuilt it. We spent probably another $150,000 in construction than we needed to. Like, we could have built it smaller. We could have got the same amount of rents out of it. Yeah, so those are the lessons that we learned on that one. But that was our first deal in 2020, so it was a cash deal. And then about this time, I was spending a ton of time on Bigger Pockets. Like, Bigger Pockets, it's all BRRRR deals. So if you're not familiar with BRRRR, you're buying it, you're rehabbing it, you're renting it out, and then rinse and repeat. So it's a whole process. So that's what I thought I needed to do, and that's what I was looking to do, more of those BRRRR deals. But it was really hard because in Oregon, the house prices, it's not like the Midwest. In the Midwest, that works like amazing, especially with debt, like 7% debt, what you can get now. It works really good there. But here in Oregon, it's just the price point's too high, the rents are too low to kind of do BRRRR deals. So I was struggling with that, trying to figure out what to do with that.
Yeah.
And that's when I was listening to this podcast with, it was one of the Bigger Pockets podcasts. And this crazy guy on there, he was talking about how he was taking over mortgages, he's buying houses for no money down, he was doing all these insane things. And of course that was Pace Morby. So like once I found pace, then I went down the whole sub 2 rabbit hole and joined. That was in April of 2022 that I joined sub 2.
Wow. Okay.
So it was like 2 years later. So at this point, I only had 4 properties at that point.
That you had house hacked and then also developed yourself.
Yep.
Or built yourself.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So only 4 at that one. But then once I joined sub 2, they teach you how to do creative finance at like a very high level. Like you can, they call it the sub 2 vault. So you go in there and there's so much information. There's like more information than you could possibly digest. Like you have to really be a sniper at it. Like if you're interested in a certain type of investing, you just focus on that one. So when I joined, they had, the big thing at the time was a thing called Zero to Hero. So Zero to Hero was basically find a market, pull a list. So pull a list from like PropStream or however you get your lists or whatever type of list you want. And then hire a virtual assistant to call it. So a virtual assistant's gonna hit the phone calls all the day, get you inbound leads, and then you close the leads. So
Is that what you did?
I did that. I literally followed the step by step. I went in, did the thing, and within the first month, I got my first contract. So it happened actually really quick. VA hit this guy in Sherwood. His name's, what's his name, Larry? Yeah, his name's Larry. So Larry in Sherwood. And Larry told the VA that he wants to sell. Like, I want to sell right now. I just want cash. And we're like, well, how much do you want? And he told my VA on the phone he wanted $260. And the house, I quickly went to PropStream and pulled up this house, and the house was worth like almost $500,000. So he's just like, oh, $260. So I got on the phone with Larry. I'm like, hey, you talked to, my partner, and you're interested in selling? And he said $260. He's like, yeah, that's the number. I'm like, okay, when do you want to meet? He's like, right now. So I got in my car, and I just grabbed contracts. I just took contracts with me and drove over there. But I was so new that I know construction, but I don't know much about septic systems. Like septic systems I've learned a lot since then. So, yeah.
This is on acreage.
So he has a house, but he owns a lot of acreage, but he has a house that is partitioned up to where the house is not very big, but his drainage system for his septic system leaches onto his land. And he made sure, and the thing is Larry didn't want to sign. So we sat there and, I don't know. I think it's a really good negotiation technique, but just don't leave. Just don't leave. Just don't leave their
Sorry,
house.
I'm not getting up.
Like, bro, I'm not leaving until you sign this. No, we actually sat down. So we sat down at his table, and he was reviewing the contract. And oh my God, he kept telling stories, and he kept getting off topic. But I just kept I'm just gonna sit here and grind this guy down. So I just sat there, and we just went through all of it. And he's like, well, what do we do now? I'm like, we just sign. We sign the paperwork. And he did. He signed it. But he added on there, he's like, I'll sell it, but you have to find out how to keep the septic on the property. Like, you have to keep it on the land. And I'm like, okay, I'm into disfiguring things out. Like, I'll figure this out. So we sign it, we put it on the contract, and we go and open escrow. And one of the things I learned in sub 2, and this is what applies to everybody, is like, always squat up with somebody that knows more than what you know.
Can you, yeah.
Always.
Squat up meaning?
Yeah, always find a partner, find somebody in your community. And I wish Carolina Allen was here tonight, but she's not. But she was doing a lot of deals. She's still doing a ton of deals. But I called Carolina, I explained the situation. She's like, yeah, let's go. So she helped me, she guided me through it. So we got it under contract, we opened escrow, and she handled all that part. But the septic system's what messed me up, because we couldn't find a way to do it. And Larry, the seller, changed his mind and didn't want to sell at this point. He was like, I don't want to sell. So we're like, oh, what do we do? We couldn't solve the septic thing. So he's just like, nah, I just cancel.
Why couldn't you solve the septic thing?
Because we needed some of his acreage for the drain field. Because the drain field, it was too small to put a containment and then the leach field. So
I see, because he wanted to keep his acreage.
Yeah, he wanted to keep his acreage, and he wanted to keep it for development later on. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was your biggest learning from this?
Oh my God, learn about septic systems.
Okay.
learn about septic. No, actually, that was the biggest takeaway. Actually, was squatting up, meeting people, doing what you're doing. What you want to do is who you need to meet. You need to meet the person doing that type of investing, or that type. If you want to meet wholesalers, you got to network with wholesalers. They're going to learn how to have conversations with sellers. the right way, because it's an art to getting people to sign, especially in our market. Like, there's so much competition. So like when you talk to Marina and you talk to Todd and their group, like they're out there grinding and doing the thing, and it's really hard, really, really hard. So that's the biggest takeaway I had, is to find the person doing what you want to do and bring them in. Because honestly, like on my first deal, I didn't care if I made any money.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do the process.
And coming to these meetups is where you're going to meet those people, right?
Yes,
So,
that's where my biggest successes come, actually, coming out like your meetup and just talking to different people, finding out what they do and learning from them.
totally.
Yeah.
And then you get to call them like, hey, I'm struggling with this. I have literally no idea what to do. What should I do? Oh, I've actually come across that 10 times. This is exactly what you do.
Yeah.
It just makes it that much easier.
Yep.
That's awesome. Hell
Yeah, so that one canceled, but then I got a contract 2 weeks later of one that actually went through. So that was the first deal and I squatted up with a guy named John Robinson. So John Robinson, he is the PDX REI group, so his meetup, and that's where I met John at. I met John at the meetup, and my goal when I joined Sub 2 is to partner with everybody in the community. Like, I want to do a deal with everybody. But the community was much smaller now. They're smaller then. Now it's so massive, it would be really difficult to do a deal with everybody.
Yeah. And tell me more about that deal.
Okay, that one is a crazy deal. So this guy's Lester, though. So Larry was the first one, Lester's the next one.
You like L's.
Yeah, dude, I know. I got all the L people. So Lester had an issue. He had people that were living in his house that hadn't been paying him. So the first phone call I had with Lester, he's like, there was definitely pain there. So Lester explained that, yes, I have people, I have a renter that's not paying. I'm like, how long has it been, Lester? And he's like, oh, it's been a couple months. I'm like, okay. So next phone call with him, we didn't really get much into the first phone call other than just getting basic information and trying to work some numbers and find out what he wanted. But by the second and third phone call, the timeline kept getting longer. Lester's like, no, they've been there about a year. I'm like, wow, that must be horrible. And the next call was like, no, they've been there a couple years. I'm like, God, I'm wondering, like, how long have these people been in this property? So we get farther along, we offered him cash. I went back to John and go, hey, I think this is a flip opportunity. What do you think? And he's like, yeah, here's the buy number. You need to get it for 260. Like 260 is the number. It's in Aloha, and houses at that time were worth about 450 to 475 for that style house. So we needed to get it for 260 cash. So we went back to Lester, offered him 260, and Lester is too low. He's like, that doesn't work. I need more. And I learned at the time, Pace would always have us tell people, if we can't get cash, then pivot to terms, like offer like a creative offer. I said, well, are you open to terms? Like Pace teaches us. And he's like, what are terms? So then I explained, it's an installment sale, just explained the basics of it. And he said, yeah, I'd be open to that. And I got like super excited. So I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be a seller finance deal.
Even better.
Even better. So I go back to John, I'm like, what should we do? Now, John was super smart. John was like, just offer him a little bit more. Just offer him like 280. But our max, I go, what's our max? I wanted to know all the things. What's our max we can offer? He's like, probably 320. So I get on the phone with Lester and we're negotiating. And this is where I messed up because I didn't have much experience, and I went right to my max. I was like, because I got excited because he was like, oh dude, he's willing to carry this. He's actually gonna do this. I'm like, okay, 320. He's like, done. He just said done. He's just done. I'm like, oh, I could have got it for less. So then I reeled it back in because he's like done, and then I'm realizing I messed up, and I'm like, God, how do I salvage this? And he's like, so what kind of interest are you gonna give me? I go, well, I talked to the team and we can only do principal-only payments. He's like, 0? I go, yep, 0. I just let it sit. And then he goes, yeah, that works. I was like, okay. He's like, well, how long is this gonna go? And now I negotiate a little bit differently, but at the time I thought 5 years would be amazing. Like, just how about 5 years? And he's like, okay, that's fine. So he agreed to a 0% interest. So we got it for $5,000 down, 0% interest, 5-year note. So the payment's $902 a month to Lester. Then we have property taxes and insurance. And then we actually renovated it and turned it into a short-term rental. Because Aloha is right in the unincorporated Washington County, so you can do short terms there.
Yeah.
So, and that one's making us, now this is average. This winter was horrible. This winter we only we netted like I think $1,300 a month for 2 months in a row. So it's like the lowest it's ever been. But when you take the average over the year, we're netting anywhere from $3,000 to $3,500 a month after property management expenses, and then take out. So we're actually netting close to $1,500 to $2,000 a month in net.
That's great.
Net.
Hell yeah.
I know. Insane, right?
Yeah. Well, and you got a good property manager.
Yes, got a great. Is Mike Osted? Is he here? If you need a good property manager, Mike's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so that was then really not your first sub-2 deal. That was your first seller carry.
Yep, first seller carry. Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about your first sub-2 deal. How many reps did it take to get till you hit that?
So the first one, God, I don't remember the first one actually. It's the sad part. I just remember the ones that I negotiated.
Okay, well, yeah, let's talk about that.
Because I bought from different wholesalers. So in our market, most of the sub-2 deals come from foreclosures. Like those are the easy ones that kind of come in first.
And can you explain why that is?
Because sellers in a really bad situation, and they did not solve they have problems going on in their lives, and they just could not solve them, and they're coming up on a deadline. Because with a foreclosure, there's a date where they're literally going to be, like, they don't have a choice. Like, they're gone from the house. So a lot of sellers will put that off till the last minute. And sometimes the only option they have is to sell to an investor who can just take over the mortgage.
Got it.
So that's how we got I think the first couple were that way.
And you have to bring up their arrears as well.
Yes. So sometimes their arrears are really expensive.
And their arrears are what they didn't pay, all the payments that they missed.
Yeah. People live in there for 1 to 2 years for free.
Right.
And then complain about, their situation.
You're foreclosing on me? What?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about the first deal that you negotiated.
I think one of the first ones was I think the most memorable one was there's one in Sweet Home that we picked up.
Oh.
And lady was in foreclosure. I felt good about this one because we actually saved her from foreclosure. It was a situation where she was going through hard times, and we actually overpaid, a little bit to her. So she ended up carrying a second. So we call it a hybrid, is where you give someone like cash down, and then they carry a second behind their underlying mortgage. So like with that one, with Heidi, we gave Heidi $20,000 at close of escrow, and then she carried another 20. But it's a rental, and it was in really clean, like super clean, amazing shape. Yeah, that was one of the ones. There's another one in sale. Actually, the best one that we should just talk about that one. I have one closing next week. It's a brand new build. So it's a D.R. Horton house. It was built 8 months ago. The seller, so this is not a distressed situation. This seller is in Homeland Security. And so he got, like when you're have government jobs, sometimes they just tell you, like, you got to move to Texas. We need you over here, and they'll pay them, some moving fees that'll cover that. So this guy, same situation. If he tried to sell traditionally, he would not be able to sell his house. He'd have to come out of pocket $30,000 or $40,000. It's like a really bad spot for him. Whereas we can come in as a sub-2 investor. Like in this case, we gave the guy $3,000, so he got paid $3,000. The guy that brought me the deal paid him $12,000. So like all in, we're in $15,000 to buy a $500,000 house that was just built, like brand new. It's got solar, on it. We're taking over the solar lien. And we're gonna, our exit on it is a lease option. So we're gonna try to find a buyer that wants to lease it and then have an option to buy it in 3 to 5 years.
Okay. All right, let's pause on that for a second. So let's back up. Let's talk about what subject to existing mortgage means. Like when you're saying sub-2, can you describe that to people that don't understand exactly what that means?
Yeah. So what that means is that when you're buying a property, a traditional way to buy it, right, you're bringing in a new debt to cash out the old debt. So if someone owns it free and clear, obviously there's no debt, but you're bringing in, a lender, or you're Mr. Cooper, New Res, Shop, whatever your lender is, that you're purchasing it. So buying a sub-2 is the debt's already in place. So the seller already has debt on there. So that's a lot of times when we're talking to people, we're like, why would I bring in new debt to pay off your old debt? My new debt's at 7%. You have a mortgage at 2.5%. It makes more sense for me just to take over your existing debt. So subject to is you're purchasing the property subject to the existing debt or liens. So it can encompass more than just the debt. It could be solar liens, it could be HVAC liens, any type of lien. You're just purchasing it subject to the existing liens.
Okay. And do you need to get the bank's approval on this?
You do not. That's the beauty of it, is that you can do the whole process without any bank approval.
So you don't have to have your credit pulled or anything like that?
No. So that's why you hear people saying, no money down, no credit checks. If you've ever, who here has gotten a home loan before? Is it the most painful thing ever? Like, oh my God. Every single time you're going through with it, they're calling you, hey, I just wanted to double check. Can you send me your bank statements again? And you're like, I just sent them to you last week. Yeah, I know you did, but we need it again. And it's like, it's so painful. So after you go through that, and then after you buy a sub-2 deal, you never want to go back, because literally, like, the seller's not asking you for a credit check. No one's actually asking you any of those questions. They're just like, will you please take this from me? It's that insane.
Okay, so let's talk about the mechanics a little bit more.
Yeah.
All right, so you are buying this property from your dad here, okay, Mr. Seller, and he's in a distressed situation. He's underwater on it, okay? That sounds like the classic one.
Classic, yeah.
Okay. So how are you paying his mortgage? Or how is he getting his mortgage payments? Right?
Yes. So what we do, so there's two ways to do it. So I'll give you the safe way, the best way. The best way is to set up a servicer. So we'll go to like Guardian Contract Services or Evergreen Loan Servicing, any type of servicer. Our payments go to the servicer makes the payment to the mortgage and sends a statement to the seller. And the reason we do it that way so the seller knows that the mortgage is being paid. So that's the safest way to do it, that everybody knows what's going on. It keeps it very transparent. The other way we do it is just to go straight into the portal and set up our bank just to make the payment directly into their mortgage portal.
So you just get his, let's say, Shell Point mortgage login and password. You log into his account and you just put in your bank account information.
And what's even better is that I just say, hey, Mike Kim, I need your help. And I call Mike. So Mike's in the back over here. And he does, sorry, Mike, I had to point you out. So Mike does, I work with him on every transaction I do. So Mike gets all the information. He'll talk to the seller. He'll get their mortgage information, the portal information. He makes sure all the paperwork's right. So we get all the information from everybody, insurance, all those kind of things. And so that's that. We always want portal access too. So we can just make sure, because a lot of times things update. Like, you know, this time of year, you're doing all the escrow analysis. So like taxes go up. So your payment changes $20-$30 or whatever it is. And you have to let the servicer know so that your payment's not short on the next ones. I prefer portal access over servicing, because servicing, it's kind of crazy. We have one in Salem right now where the servicer that we're making the mortgage payments to is in Florida. And we had been making, the servicer had been making, they pulled the money out of our account on the 25th. To mail a check to the servicer in Florida to get payment on the 1st. Well, like 4 payments were fine, and then all of a sudden the seller was reaching out to me on the 10th of the month saying that, hey, the mortgage, they got contacted by the bank. Mortgage wasn't getting paid. So we had to go check with the servicer, and the servicer had been making the payments, but it was in Florida, and it was taking like 2 weeks now for them to get the payment to post. So we actually had to go in with the servicer and ask them to pull the money on the 15th now so that the payment can get there on the 1st.
Wild.
So it just causes more of a cash flow issue.
Yeah.
So if you have portal access, I think it's better. But servicing's better for the seller.
Got it. The servicing service, what does that cost?
It's about $15 to set it up, and I think they charge like another $7. Like they all vary a little bit. So it's like $20-$30 a month.
That's not bad.
To handle the servicing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Couple things: insurance, tax depreciation, title. Okay. So how, and then due on sale, right? So let's talk about each 4 of those and how those work. Yeah. Insurance.
So insurance, we always go through. We use. You can do it several different ways, but we have a service that actually, so Mike is the one that always sets it up for us. So he actually has a really good insurance person that will handle, that is very familiar with subject to. Like that's almost all they do. Like he specializes in that. So we use him on all of our insurance policies. But if you're going to do it yourself, you just have to make sure that if you're buying an LLC, you want your LLC as the primary insured. You want to make sure that all the seller's names on there is additional insured or additional interest. So sometimes they word it differently. So the seller has to be on there, and then of course the mortgage has to be on there as well. So all those, because if you don't get that right, that's typically where due on sale will get triggered. If you mess up the insurance, because then they're like, wait a second, Chris owned this property, but now it's Robert Harden's on the, like, where's Chris at? So then they go researching, and that's where due on sale gets triggered.
Got it.
So that's insurance. What were the other ones?
Insurance, tax depreciation.
Tax depreciation.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's one of the biggest reasons why we purchase properties, and our family does, is for tax depreciation. So it's amazing. You can do a cost segregation study, and if you want information on it, there's a dude right here, there's Dylan right there that's his service.
Yes.
So he's doing that. And what they'll do is they'll actually break all those, they'll take a property instead of the IRS is weird. They wanted you to depreciate it over 27 and a half years. Like, why 27 and a half? Why not 27? Why not 28? I don't know. 27 and a half is the number for residential. And straight line depreciation is just breaking down that cost over 27 and a half years. Whereas if you get a cost segregation study done, then they break it into different, there's 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, 7, I don't know. Dylan would know that better. I just know they drop it into buckets, and you can go from getting like $7,000 worth of depreciation a year on a property. When they had like 100% bonus depreciation going on, you could get like $70,000 of depreciation off of one asset. So like if you don't want to pay taxes, that's the way to go.
Right. Yes. And because you are an active investor,
Yes.
you can now depreciate that off of your business income as well.
Yes. It's crazy.
Working with the drywall.
Because last year was the first year. Well, actually, this is a recorded one. The IRS, are they going to come after me now?
No, they're not, because you're doing it legally.
I'm doing it legally.
You're doing it legally.
I know. I just get nervous about that.
They wrote the code that way. So
I know,
they encourage people to buy real estate and oil and gas, right?
So last year was the first year I didn't pay any income tax. So
that's amazing.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's amazing. And all legal, right? So
100% legal.
are you comfortable sharing what before you did any of the cost segregation or tax depreciation, what your tax burden would have been?
Tax burden on that money would have been about $130,000.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Yeah. And that is how you're able to now utilize that money to now buy more investments. And
That's what's
leverage
crazy
that.
about it. You take that same capital and buy more stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it just compounds. Yeah, it's insane.
It's wild.
Highly recommend. And that's what makes it even more amazing is that when you can buy an asset like that one I'm talking about in Salem for $15,000. So if they bring back 100% bonus depreciation, you can actually buy an asset for $15,000 and get $80,000 worth of depreciation.
Yeah.
So like the ratio is, and what's cool is that you can push that into next year and the next year and the next year. So if you don't use it up, so that's my goal, is to create a never-ending supply of depreciation that I could not possibly use up.
Or even if you go over, can't you then pull back the last 3 years?
That's what they're saying. I need to check with my CPA.
I've gotten friends that have gotten like hundreds of thousands back from the previous 3 years because they had too much overage.
Okay. I think I'll look into that.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah, that's the next goal.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome, man. That's really, really cool. And the amazing part is like, you're just Robert. Like anyone in this crowd can do this. You don't have to be a billionaire to do it. You just have to understand the tax strategies that the IRS put into place so everyone can take advantage of it, right? They're encouraging us to buy real estate, to invest in oil and gas. Those are two of the biggest ways to depreciate or bring down your tax burden every year. Awesome. Okay, so let's go into... What was the other one? Oh, due on sale clause.
Oh, due on sale. Yes, due on the boogeyman.
Yeah, so that is, when sub 2 gets brought up, the majority of people are like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Due on sale clause. Like, they're screwed,
Right.
So talk about how that's mitigated and what you do to, make sellers feel comfortable with this.
Yes. So if it ever happens to me, the first thing I do is I just give Michael Kim a call.
Well,
Michael Kim fixes it.
First, what is it? Let's talk about what is due on sale.
Yeah, due on sale. Okay, so in all loan docs, mortgage docs, I don't think we've ever seen one that doesn't have a due on sale clause. They all have them. So basically, when title is transferred, the mortgage docs say that this debt has to be paid off. That's due on sale. So that's the big risk you take with buying sub 2 deals, is that you run the risk of that. So how we mitigate the risk is that we're always looking at who has the debt. And the reason why it's important is if it's like a local credit union or a small bank that's local, they actually, when they create that note, they actually kind of keep them on their desk. It's not something they check all the time, but it's the likelihood of them going through and seeing what's going on with the property, because they're looking for second liens. They're just they're nosy about it. They're just kind of checking in on it. It's not something that's active that they're looking at. Now, if it's a big national servicer like Mr. Cooper, NewRez, ShellPoint, any of those ones, as soon as they write that mortgage, they throw it in the bin. It's like something like they don't look at, they don't care, it doesn't matter. So those are the ones where we feel really comfortable with not getting due on sale called. But if it does get called,
so if it's a smaller credit union or something like that, you'll just say, sorry, we're not going to do it?
No. So what we'll do with those ones is actually we'll do a lease option purchase. So we can do the same terms as everything. So we're going to go to the seller, we're going to negotiate the same thing. We're going to have them sign all the paperwork, sign a deed and everything. So we're going to have that on hand so we don't have to go back to the seller, and we'll do a lease purchase. It protects us. It's not a favorite of mine because a lot of things can happen.
Because you don't have title in your name?
You don't have title in your name. So like we could do a deal, we could do a lease option, and then, sorry Chris, you're about ready to get hit by a bus, but Chris doesn't know yet, but then a year down in the deal, Chris gets hit by a bus. And then his kids now inherit the property, right? I have a contract with Chris, and now the kids are like, no, you did that deal with my dad, and we're not okay with that now. Yeah. So then I have to fight your children for the contract we signed. Like we have to go to court, and then they hold title. So we prefer if title gets transferred to us, so that if something happens, then someone else is suing us versus us having to sue somebody.
Right, that makes sense. Okay.
But yeah, so lease purchases still work, but it's not ideal.
Okay, I distracted you, so keep going down due on sale.
Oh, due on sale,
The bigger ones, right? You were talking
big
about?
servicers are the ones where you don't really have to worry about. Small banks, 100% should be concerned with those. Do a lease purchase on those ones.
Okay.
If due on sale does get called, it's not the end of the world. Mike is fixed, I don't know. How many have you fixed, Mike? Just 3? But he's fixed 3, so like if it's proof that it can be fixed. So typically what we'll do is we'll deed the property back to the original seller and set up the same terms on a lease purchase. That's one way to do it.
Yep.
Second way to do it is actually a gangster move. There's a guy in Las Vegas.
Yes.
I know it sounds crazy. There's a dude in Nevada that if it does happen, so he's an attorney, and he has a whole bunch of LLCs that are seasoned. And basically what you do is you're going to deed the property into one of his LLCs. He's going to take it through the bankruptcy court. He's going to strip off due on sale. He's going to retitle the debt in your name at the same interest rate and everything. But it's more expensive. It's $10,000 to $15,000 to go through the process. So it's an expensive process. It's much cheaper just to deed the property back and then set up a lease purchase.
Yeah, totally. That's $500 or something.
Dude, it's way cheaper, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then why are people making such a big fuss about this? I guess,
because it's not traditional. So I think it's not traditional, and I think people like the easy button. Like everybody else is doing the thing, let's just do that thing. So I think people do steer away from it because of that. But if you're willing to, if you're a risk taker in the sense of like, it's a little scary at first. I'm not gonna lie, like the first one we bought, I was like, I don't know, did we make a mistake here? Was this a bad idea? And then it actually turned out really well. So then that just amplified things, and now we're just looking for as many as we can get.
So with the recent rate cuts, right, during COVID, I would assume this is kind of the almost golden age of people. Very recently, they have some really great rates, and you can now go in and buy them for people that are struggling, right, or in distress. Was sub 2 like occurring before that a whole lot?
Oh my God, sub 2, the act of purchasing property sub 2 has been going on for at least 80 years. Like it's been happening for a very long time. The guys that were not promoting it. The guys that were doing it kept it very hush hush. It was one of those things where don't tell anybody about it. And then you have like, I hate to say a loudmouth, but Pace is pretty loud. And he broadcast it everywhere. So he's showing a lot of light on it. So it made it more mainstream, I would say.
And those guys, I think it's the exchangers, right? They use different terms, is my understanding. Is that correct?
I'm not familiar with that,
no?
yeah.
Okay, all right. But interesting, okay.
Yeah.
And so Pace really brought a lot of people into this world because he's a genius marketer.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah.
When it comes to marketing.
Yeah.
Especially in this space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about, you ended up really delving into this community a lot more, becoming Owners Club. So what is that?
Owners Club came up at the last, it's called Squat Up Summit. So it's like the first, Pace did an event with Cody Sperber. Actually, it was Cody's event, and I know Peggy, you went to it, right? Yeah, Peggy was there. I missed out on that because that happened right before I joined. I remember seeing, like, having FOMO, all the people going down there and like not really fully understanding, but that was like the first big event that Cody Sperber did. And Pace, the Sub-2 community, kind of took over at it. And then Pace saw how popular it was, and then that's when he started planning Squat Up Summit with Jamil Damji. Jerry Norton gets involved too. And that happened last year, like last March. And I went down to Squat Up Summit. I didn't go down there knowing anything, like Owners Club wasn't even a thing. It was something that Pace announced like during one of the sessions. And I was actually out of the room at the time. I didn't know anything about it. And we're sitting there at the bar, sitting with Mike Kim, and our friend Chino came up with this box. And it said Owners Club on it. And we're like, what is that? He's like, I don't know. This is what his exact words, I don't know. Pace told me to do it, so I did it. And I was like, well, how much was it? He's like, it was 30 grand. We're like, you just spent 30 grand on something that Pace just told you to do. And then me and, I hate to call you a dumbass, but I feel like we're dumbasses, right? We just followed Chino and we just signed up too. So we're like, oh, Chino's doing it, we're gonna do this. And we didn't know what we were getting into. But it's like a high level mastermind. There's only 400 people in it. And really high-level investors. So it's just a different room to be in.
Totally.
And I found that after paying for mentorships, like the learning curve it cut the learning curve down. Like if I would have been out there doing the same thing, it would take me 5 years to get to the point where I got in a very short period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so did that accelerate then?
Oh yeah, completely accelerated. They really push you for achieving your goals, outlining how to get there, what you should be doing, what you should be focusing on your KPIs, or even something as simple as your calendar. We did a whole series on calendar because when you look at your calendar, you need to put money-making activities on there. So a lot of people will have their calendar and they're like, what am I doing this week? Like whatever you're focused on, and then filling your calendar up with money-making activities, also family stuff, all the things, and then dedicating time towards it. And then when you have outside distractions come in, it's easier to push those off.
Yeah.
And stay focused. So, but it's so hard to do because, as you know, like everybody that's trying to do better.
Squirrel.
Yes. And there's constant things to run after and chase.
Yeah.
So, but that's Owners Club. Owners Club is just, it's a yearly renewal at Squat Up. They'll do it again. I think they're going to open up a few spots. Some people just fall off and don't want to be a part of it. Like every mastermind. So
I want to talk a little bit more about that. If you look at the people that are really successful, right, is they're saying no to more things than they're saying yes to, right? A lot of times we're like, okay, what do I need to do this year in order to achieve X, right? Which exactly what you're talking about is, what do I need to remove this year to achieve X? Right? Which is a completely different mindset if you think about it. And I know all of us can remove multiple things off of our calendars or off of our daily to-dos or weekly or whatever it is, right? And so I would challenge everyone to maybe take a look at yourself and what you can remove to achieve your goals that we just talked about earlier. Okay, so This has been so fun. I love this. I love chatting with you and hearing all about this. I mean, this stuff it's amazing. So where are the majority of your interest rates at?
Okay, so our lowest one is a house in Monmouth, 2.2% interest. So that's the lowest one we have. I only know of somebody getting lower than that. Pace, I was talking to him, he has a 1.9%. He has one in his portfolio. 1.9. I've never even heard one that low. But yeah, 2.2 is the lowest. Our highest one is this one we just got in Salem because it's a newer mortgage. So it's a 5.5.
Yeah.
So it's on the high end. But when I compare it to like DSCR debt that we're getting right now, like we're paying around 7% for DSCR. So it's still lower than investor rates.
Yeah.
So still really good.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you can do this with cars. You can, I mean, anything with a loan, right? Cars, planes, anything, correct?
Yes, you can sub to any type of debt. So people are buying and selling cars, RVs. Like I know some people that have RVs. Just be careful. Like I've heard of some people selling their RV sub to, and then the dude just taking off, and you can't find him, and you have to have security docs and everything. But yeah, you can do all those. I like subtoing houses because the house can't go anywhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I love that.
Hard to pick it up and move it. That's
Unless
good.
it's got wheels.
All right, so before we open it up to the crowd to ask some questions, I'm going to ask you kind of just a few final questions here about each of your family members.
Oh, I love this.
What is it that you love the most about your father?
Oh my God, his work ethic. My dad's work ethic is epic, and he's still kicking it. He's almost 70, people.
Wow.
So I love that. Like my dad's work ethic. Yeah, it's the best.
I love that. What is it that you love the most about your mother?
Her honesty, because my mom will not BS you. She will tell you, even if you don't like it, she'll tell you how it is.
That's good.
Yeah, right?
That's important to have in your life. What is it that you love the most about Max?
Her artistic ability. I keep trying to encourage her to do more and more and more because she comes up with the best art. Like, I love it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And what is it the most that you love about your sister?
Her heart. Yeah. She puts her heart into everything. Like she cares more about some of the stuff, our family business, than I think the rest of us do, actually. She really cares. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, you've got...
wait, don't skip my brother-in-law, bro.
I'm sorry. Excuse me.
My
And
brother-in-law.
your brother-in-law.
No,
I'm
seriously,
sorry.
yes.
Excuse me. My bad.
I know. My brother-in-law, I don't know. Like, I don't know where we'd be without my brother-in-law, honestly. Like, he built and ran, like, the restoration business we have that we get to be a part of and, like, earn income from, and all from his hard work. Like, my brother-in-law, like, no lie, built it from the smallest company into, it's Restoration One of Portland. And
wow.
it's a huge business. He started the one in Arizona too. We have one in Phoenix, and my brother-in-law started that one. And he's starting another one down south in Oregon. So like, my brother-in-law is amazing.
Cool. Robert, thank you so much, man. I cannot appreciate you enough for coming out and educating us on this space. And I want to acknowledge you for you being such an amazing person, great friend, and just can't thank you enough, man.
Well, thank you, dude. I really appreciate you having me out. I love talking with you because the same conversation, we've had different versions of it. Like, we could talk forever. Like, Chris is so easy to talk to. He's such a good interviewer, and I don't know. And we'll have many more conversations, so I love it. Thank you.
Can we give a round of applause for Robert? All right, guys. So, don't everyone jump up at once, but who has some questions?
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I thought I was off stage.
No, this is you, dude.
So sorry.
It's your night.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was done.
Let's start here.
Yeah, I was just curious, in your sub-2 acquisitions and all that, you were talking about, in terms of defending against the due on sale clause, you're using a lease option as a possibility. Have you experienced or worked with doing a trust, putting the property within a trust and using it that way instead?
Yes.
What's your experience?
In fact, it's very popular with a lot of local wholesalers. They love doing trusts. Trusts are the thing that they go to. The trust thing came up it became super popular mainly in Florida. It kind of moved its way out here. And the reason why is that the dude pushing trusts sold trusts. So that was like if you came to me and like, Rob, do I need drywall in my house? I'd be like, yes, you absolutely need drywall. Your house, outside your house, on your roof, wherever you want it, I will sell it. So the dude doing trust, that's how those got started. It does not protect against due on sale. That's the crazy part, is that even Mike's worked on some files where they put it in a trust and they still call due on sale. So it's not a foolproof. The best way to structure it, if you're going to go the route of the trust or LLC, actually, if you have a seller that has the time to do it or set it up right, is to actually, like, same thing with a trust, put it family name trust and put the property in it and then do the transfer. You can do the same with the LLC. You can still be like Rob Harden LLC. You just call the bank. Hey, I'm thinking about renting out my property, and what I want to do is I want to protect myself from liability. Are you okay with me putting the property in an LLC? And the bank's gonna go, oh yeah, people do this all the time. Go ahead. Great. Can I send you my docs just so that I just don't want there to be any problems in the future. And then after that, sell the LLC to an investor. If you're buying it, you could set it up the same way if you really want to protect yourself. But yeah, trusts don't protect it, completely against it. There's other disadvantages too of a trust. They're taxed at the highest tax bracket. So keep that in mind when you're trying to exit and sell it, or just even have a lot of cash flow coming through it. It's going to be taxed much higher. It's taxed differently.
Well, also, like, I have bought properties in my name and then transferred into an entity because it's, gone through conventional mortgage and not told the bank, and then transferred it into an LLC. And so many people do that, and
all the
it
time.
doesn't trigger the due on sale. So, I mean, you just going above and beyond and calling the bank saying, hey, I'm just doing this because I'm trying to protect myself.
Yeah.
I don't see them having any issue with that.
And it sounds like a funny conversation too, because like if I did it, I would say, can you make sure you put that in my file? And like, can you send me some correspondence on it? Because I just want to make sure that I have that documentation I could give to the investor. And then if something pops up, they could actually submit it through the portal or whatever. So
Smart.
yeah.
And they never have any issue with that?
No, I've not done it that way.
Oh,
I've never needed
got
to.
it.
But I would coach someone, that's what I would tell them to do if they needed, just to make sure. But I've heard of other people doing it.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's start here.
I got two.
Yeah.
One of them, because I used to work for a servicer, if you do put it in LLC and they find out, but if they don't find out about it, you're fine. But once they find out about it, then it does become an issue. If there is that language and all that stuff, then it would probably become an issue.
Fair.
Is there a reason why you don't do like equity insurance if you had like those smaller community banks and stuff like that? Because I know that Pace talked about doing equity insurance, and in that way, if they do they call the due on sale clause, excuse me, then they'll just come in and they'll just pay them off, and they'll have supposedly the same terms, length of whatever the term is, interest rate and all that other good stuff, so your payment stays the same. And you just pay to this insurance company now that paid off the bank, and then you should be, I assume, good with that. I was wondering, is it more expensive, or is there a reason why you don't do it?
I've heard of that, and it was popular. I want to say a couple years ago, people were talking a lot about that, but the company that they were promoting went out of business.
Oh, shit.
And then I couldn't find any other ones. I looked into it a tiny bit, not that much though, but I would love, if you have a referral on that, I would love to get that.
I thought that Chase was doing something with that, where he was insuring, but he had some kind of company or something he started up, but I never really researched it, so I can't say.
I think it's amazing though, but yeah, due on sale insurance, I've heard of it, but I've never gotten it or anything, so.
Okay, because I was interested in possibly doing something like that.
Yeah, fair. Tim?
What do you think of the potential for the forbearances that were given over COVID coming back on homeowners?
They're amazing. Are you talking about like when they put like a partial claim or a loan mod on the end of a note? Yeah, I have multiple ones that have those on them. It's awesome. It's like 40 grand worth of debt at 0% interest for the duration of the loan until the first is due and then the second's due. So yeah, we like those. Yeah.
Sorsha, and then we'll go over here.
What's the coolest deal you've put together?
Ooh.
Like the most fun, exciting, maybe traumatizing one you've done?
I have one right now that I think is super exciting. I was super excited this morning about it until I got on the call with the seller. Okay, so here's the structure. Wholesaler, and this is like, my family's kind of funny because they're always like, why do you go to all these events and stuff? And I'm like, because I meet really cool people that are doing cool shit, basically. So one of the methods that we do is called the Morby method. So the Morby method's one that Pace came up with, and then we've done modifications of it. I wish Todd was here tonight, but because we call it the Kono to Perm method, but it's all like variations of the same thing. But basically what a Morby method is when you get the seller to agree to a seller carry, and we put a DSCR lender or debt in first position and give that as a down payment to the seller, and then the seller goes in second position behind the first position debt. So it's a way to get into a deal with no money at all, and sometimes you can get money back. So you can actually get paid to buy a deal. So it's kind of crazy. So somebody I met at, who's in Owners Club, and I met down in Florida, brought me a Morby method out here, and we structured it. I had it all dialed in. We went out, had a Zoom like last weekend where we structured everything out, and I told them what I needed to get on it. They went to the seller and they got it under contract. And I was like super excited. Send me, because I was gonna be the buyer on it. So they sent me the contract. I got to read through the contract, but it didn't have the terms like what a Morby method needs in it. So I call him back up and I'm like, it doesn't have it in there. He's like, oh no, seller is good. We talked on the phone. They know what we're doing. They're okay with second position. We're totally good with this. They know exactly what you're doing. They're gold. And I go, okay, great. Let's set up a call with the seller just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Well, that call was this morning at 11 a.m. And guess what? The seller was not good with
Oh, shit.
But had we done it, this is what's crazy about this deal. Had this worked, what we were going to do is give the seller $300,000. They wanted it's a 5-plex in Portland. Seller was going to get $300K. The cost of the other acquisition costs would be another $70K, right? So we're up to $370. So we'll have, to close the first transaction, we're going to have $370,000 against the property. And that was going to ask the seller to carry a second, but not on the subject property, onto sub 2 properties that we own. So we're going to break their note up into multiple notes behind sub 2 debt, so freeing up the subject property. And at the same time, we're going to get a refinance on that and pull out another $250,000. So basically, I can buy a property, get paid $250,000 for doing it. And that's the structure of this debt of this deal, but it got all blown up this morning, so. But we have another call in a couple days, so I'm going to try to get it back on track because that would be an amazing story to tell. So that's one.
Well, yeah, why can't you do more of those?
You can do more. They're hard to pitch. It's just that sellers
Don't
you have
wanna be in
multiple
second
hurdles.
position.
Yeah, the second position part. Usually that's not the big deal. It's the moving the note, moving it like that.
Talk to Jeff Stevens.
I know. Well, no, I know how to do it. It's just getting someone to agree to it. So that's the hard part, is that they're like, this seller, had the team that pitched them done it properly, we wouldn't be, we're basically right where the first conversation should be before we went under contract. That's where we're at, back to that point.
Yeah. Over here.
Okay.
How do you
And then
protect
Dylan.
yourself from like bankruptcy, from the seller going bankrupt? And then 2, on that scenario you were saying where the seller, I guess it's 2 different questions. Where the seller had to move to Texas, how do you remove the debt to income so that he can, or they can also buy in Texas?
Super good.
On that one?
Yeah, super good question. So the sub 2 part, so the debt to income ratio, we always ask sellers, hey, when are you going to buy another property? Because that's something we need to know in their timeline. If it's 12 months or under, and they actually are in the process of buying something, we'll set up a lease purchase with them. And the reason why is that if you're buying, a lot of people, it's really common for people to be buying a property and selling a property. So if this one sells, then they can actually buy the next one, right? So what we'll do is we'll go, okay, we'll buy your property, we'll set up a lease purchase, we'll give you a down payment that now that money is seasoned money and can be used for this transaction. So whenever you're buying something, the banks are always, I don't know why they care. They're like, where'd this money come from? Like, oh, did it come from a relative? Well, you can't use it. Like, it's your money, where did it come from? Well, if it's part of the purchase transaction, that's seasoned money and can be used immediately for the new purchase. So we can actually help them purchase the new one, and we structure the lease to where it's high enough to where it wipes out their income. So then it removes it from the DTI. But if they're not purchasing anything and they're just like, I'm done with this one, I'm going to rent for a year, I'm going to fix my credit, I'm going to do whatever, then we just do a straight sub 2, set up servicing so that they get those statements every month. So when they go to Jason to buy another property, and Jason's if you need mortgage loan, Jason's a dude to talk to. If you go to buy one, then you can show Jason, hey Jason, I sold my property, here's all the records of the payments the seller's making on this debt, because it's counted as note income versus rental income. So note income takes longer to come off DTI. So that's how those work. Oh, sorry, I missed what was the first one?
Bankruptcy.
Bankruptcy, yes. So to protect yourself from bankruptcy, you need to have an amazing contract. So if you join Sub 2, you can use PACE's contracts. They're updated like every 6 months to 12 months, and they have language in there. So in the case of a bankruptcy, the contract states that they need to exclude the debt from the bankruptcy. So if you get a notice of it, you're going to reach out to the trustee, you're going to provide documentation, you're going to say this needs to be excluded, we're the ones making the payment, the debt's serviceable, it's not bankruptable. Shona keeps raising her hand.
Dylan, and then we'll get to Shona. Yes, Dylan and then Shona. Sorry, Shona. Yes.
Yeah, question on, so sub 2, you said you can sub 2 anything, sub 2 car, whatever. But in terms of like strategy, does sub 2 lend itself to like a buy and hold, or a BRRRR, or a short-term rental, or a mid-term rental, or does it not really matter? And,
You can-
and I guess of those strategies, or different strategies, what have you chosen?
Oh my gosh, we've done many of the exit strategies. So the beauty of buying it, so like when you're buying a property at 7% debt and you're underwriting and calculating it, it's really hard to cash flow unless it's, there's a lot of factors that go into it. But man, having debt at 2, 3, 4% makes most deals happen. So like when we're exiting or we're underwriting, we're looking at worst case scenario. What is this? A long-term rental. So as a long-term rental, does it break even? Does it, like if a deal breaks even, then we will look at other exits. So like, does this one lend itself to a midterm rental? Like, are we going to talk to Shona? Are we going to talk to Sorsha? We should have you guys battle it out like a podcast or something. That'd be a good one. Are we going to go that route? Are we going to go for a lease option? Are we going to sell it on a lease option? Like, are we going to at some point refinance it? Like, you can do anything with it.
Yeah. Nice. Shona.
So I think it's really important to be very ethical, and I think we need to think about the seller too and how we protect them in case we walk away. And I've asked you this before, Robert. I know the answer, but I think that's what we don't talk about that enough because it's a serious thing. We're promising to do this, and if we default, they need to have somebody close.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why Sub 2 does get a bad rap is that there's some sellers or buyers running around that should not be buying. They don't really know what they're getting themselves into, or in the case of some guys, they actually go out and buy way too many deals too quickly because they're real easy to do. Like there's, like when you're getting a traditional mortgage, man, the bank's checking 800 different things to make sure you're not getting over your skis. But when you can buy Sub 2, there's no limit on, like if you can put up the cash to buy the deal, you can get into it. Now the scary part is that if you don't have capital in the bank of protecting yourself, what happens if the renter stops paying? Like if you're buying this deal in Oregon, like we have one of our units right now, the renter stopped paying for like, she moved in for 2 months paid and then stopped paying, and it's like $2,500 a month of revenue that's coming in. There's 10 grand worth of revenue that didn't come in and we're still making the mortgage payment on. So if you don't have enough capital to do it, you shouldn't be doing, you should buy one deal and make sure you have reserves. That's how you protect yourself, protect the seller. That's the most important one, is being a good buyer. The second most important thing is to set the seller up for success. And one of the ways we do it is that we set up it's called a mirror wrap. And God, I forgot that. What's the name of the other one, Mike? All-inclusive trust deed is something that they use in like Texas and Vegas and stuff. It's not as popular here, but it's the same thing. It's like a super deed that goes around the existing deed. And the reason you want to set it up that way is that in the case that you're abducted by aliens, you're no longer here, like you're gone, the seller has no way to take that property back. There's no instrument there if you just do a straight transfer, because they're no longer in the picture. Their name's on the debt. So what we do is we create another mortgage that wraps around the existing mortgage. It's called a mirror wrap. that gives them an instrument to take the property back. So if you quit paying, they can actually foreclose on the property the same way a bank does and take the property back. So it gives them protection. So you should always do them that way. When I first started, I did not know that. I was just buying deals, and it popped up on one of the deals that Mike and I were doing, and he's like, you should do a mirror wrap. So, and I was like, what is that? And they explained why we do it that way, so we can protect everybody. So, and it's easier to have that conversation with people that are not in foreclosure, because someone not in foreclosure, it's a different conversation. You know, like they're really worried, like, what happens if you stop paying? So you offer a mirror wrap so that they can take the property back. They get to keep your down payment. They get to keep all the payments you made along the way. You know, the principal buy down. So there's incentive for them to take it back, because they can get the property back for what they sold it for. Plus, they get that nice interest rate that they gave. You know, you had the benefit of taking on. So it's awesome.
Hell yeah. Get a little footage there.
Yeah, I like it.
Damon.
So just on the heels of that, in the case that you described where the Florida servicer was not making the payment on time, could a bad actor seller have come in and seized it back, kept the down payment? Whatever.
It would take, the way that our contracts are written, it would have to default for an extended period. Yeah. So they couldn't do it right away. We keep a close tab on that anyway, because we want to see that it posts. Like we get mortgage statements anyway, so it would pop up that it was like overdue, which would raise a huge red flag for us, because we'd be on the phone with the servicer. That's why I'm not a big fan of servicers, is because I prefer ACH. Like when electronic payments, I don't have to worry about the mail, delays. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a bit of a multi-part question, I suppose, but right now I'm working full-time, looking to start 2 businesses in the near future, and then eventually move away from my W-2. So I was curious, over time, once I get enough capital and I start looking into investing and all that, what advice would you give to someone wanting to get into rental properties? And do you have key metrics that you help decide what a property's, if it's worth it or not? And I guess, how do you oversee the time commitment from, just owning so much stuff?
Yeah, so like in my case, I'm the asset manager. So like what I do is I have property management on all of our properties. So I don't manage that part of it. So I just worry about, it's a lot of actually bookkeeping. So I have a really good bookkeeper. So like as statements come in on all these, 28 doors, we're putting them, I'm putting them in a Dropbox file. So it is a lot of work, but from an asset management, that's what I'd recommend. Like if you're wanting to do property management, I think your first couple doors, everybody should do property management on at least one door.
Yep.
Because then once you go through it, you really appreciate a good property manager, like on a high level. Like I've gone through really bad property managers. We had one, my very first one, they actually, I didn't vet them properly. And what they did is the tenant moved out, or actually they told me the tenant moved out, but the tenant was still there and they were just keeping the money. And I had a neighbor tell me, I was like, dude, I can't believe my house, it won't rent. It's been like 4 months. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, there's been people living there the whole time.
Oh, God.
So I reached out to them and then fired that one and hired a new one. But to get started, I would definitely look at creative deals, because the cost to get in with traditional, there's a lot of programs where you can get in for 3% down, 0 down, like there's all these different FHA ones. I definitely think that would be an amazing place to start. But I would also get plugged in with all the wholesalers that are selling these deals. So you want to get on like Investor Plus's list. You want to get on Discount Property Wholesalers. They do a lot of sub-2 deals too. But look at all the creative deals. I think creative deals are the easiest way to get into a property cheaply. And we underwrite all of ours to at least break even for a long-term rental. That's what will keep you safe, because at the end of the day, if the worst thing happens that it turns into a long-term rental, then you're at least breaking even on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And the last thing you want is to go red.
Oh yeah, you don't want to, once you start getting enough negative, we buy negative cash flow deals too, but you just can't have very many of them. Because once, I don't know, for me it's the psychological thing where I'm like, oh, God, I know it's only $200, but every month I'm losing $200. I don't like that idea.
Right.
What's the Gator method? Is that the same as the Morby method?
No, dude, Gator's amazing. So Gator is just, PACE labeled it Gator lending, but it's just private money lending. It's the whole umbrella of private money lending. And who's all a Gator in this room? Yeah, there's a lot. So definitely pay attention to the people who raise their hands and then hit them up on it. It's good.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sean?
At what point do you pull out of the sub-2 deal? Do you close on, you sell it, do you turn it into additional financing?
Yeah, so like one of our goals is to, at some point, refinance out the property, to pull out cash. So like that's a great way, because it's like, especially in Oregon, it's an appreciating market. You know, it's almost like clockwork, 9 to 14 years. I don't know when it's gonna happen, but whatever you bought now, 9 to 14 years, and we're double. So like when it happens, you can either tap that equity with a refinance, you could sell the property if you wanted to cash that out.
The property value doubles.
Right. It literally doubles. Yeah. It's crazy. And you have all that loan pay down. Like it's definitely, like my first house in Malala, like I paid $120 for it. It's worth like $450 now. Like it's insane what stuff does over time. It just compounds.
So those are big wins.
Big wins, yeah. I think buying anything, especially with interest rates now, like you're at a huge advantage. Like if you can get something at 2, 3, and 4%, especially with inflation. I mean, inflation. I know the numbers. What do they say inflation is right now?
Too high.
I mean, the government says it's like what 3, 4%.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's way more than that.
Yeah.
Like it's insane, dude. You go to the grocery store and you're like, 3 or 4%? No, it's more like
since
10.
2020, groceries have gone up 30%.
Yeah.
Since 2020.
They're like almost $1.
It's
exactly
insane.
So that's why you buy a property, because inflation is just going to push that up.
Yeah. It's good. Duell?
So just from your opinion, what do you see the market at right now? Is it the buyer's market, the seller's market? I know everything is kind of changing right now with all the new laws going on.
I think it's kind of choppy, but people I'm talking to are seeing positive things moving forward, is what they're saying. But I don't see interest rates coming down. That's the thing. Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Not really sure.
Off of that, kind of, what's your primary exit strategy that you're looking for in this market currently?
Okay, so I'm focused on, for 2025, lease options. So lease options. Oregon is a market where there's a lot of sub-2 deals, a lot of creative deals that don't cash flow, but being able to purchase it creatively and then turn around and find a homestead buyer or somebody that wants to purchase a property, give you an option fee to buy it at a future date. So like that, my first one is this one in Salem that I'm closing on next Wednesday, is gonna be that one. I would highly recommend. I don't want a lot of competition in this space, but if you're gonna do it, do it. I think it is the way to go in Oregon, for sure.
So let's talk about that. Yeah. Homestead buyer being someone that can't get a conventional mortgage right now, but can in 3 years when the option occurs. So they're going to pay a small fee, and then they're renting it from you, and then have the option to purchase it in 3 years.
Exactly.
And put a conventional mortgage on it at that point.
Yep.
Got it. So they have, they're starting a new job and they're going to be making 150 grand a year, and then they'll be able to get one.
Yeah. So my whole goal, so like what I'm going to do is, what I'm actually setting up is to let people get in, for a fee. The average fee on an option is like $7,500. Now, some people, you can only negotiate $3,000. Some people will be $20,000. It's going to be depending on the deal and what they're willing to give as an option fee. And basically what you do is you mark the house up. So like, what is this house going to be worth in 3 years, in 5 years, in 7 years? So you mark the property up. You're going to want to bring in the cash flow to cover the mortgage payment. Typically, a lease option buyer is going to pay a little bit higher rent rate. And then part of our agreements is that this sounds awful, but I don't want to hear from you. I don't want to know you exist. I just want your payments to come in, because I don't want to be a property manager. I'm giving you the ability to have home ownership. Treat it like your own home, because you're going to be buying this in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I want you to succeed. And how I help you succeed is that I'm actually going to set up your rent payments through Avail. Avail's a rental portal processor. What's awesome about it is that they can actually report the person's rent payments on their credit. So they have the ability to build credit, especially because most of the people that are buying this way don't have credit to qualify. So we want to help them build their credit. So we're going to provide that service. We're going to connect them with other people that are in the credit repair space because we want them to succeed. Ultimately, we want them to buy because you're already building in your profit. People that are doing this are making anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a property when they execute. So you can buy it now. They can cover your entry fee, and then you can make $50,000 to $100,000 in a couple years.
It's awesome.
So are you setting that, you're setting that end price now?
Exactly.
You're gambling where that number's gonna be.
Yes.
And then do you do any credit on the lease?
I don't. I know some people do, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I just go said this is the price you can buy it at. A longer option is actually better for a buyer, but I don't know if some people, it all depends on their situation. Like if they're a high income earner and they just have some bad credit they can get fixed in a year, I would rather take a shorter term one than going longer and paying way more for the property. Like, I don't know. It all depends on their situation.
Chris?
Hey, Robert, a question on the lease option thing. How do you decide how much of their rent goes towards principal of purchase the lease option down the road?
Zero goes towards it. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, one last question, and then we're gonna cut because we're running late. It was over here. Alejandro.
Have you been able to hold equity from substitute properties?
No, that's the one downside of doing sub 2 deals. So when you start buying sub 2 deals, you need to start using some more advanced strategies. Like when I talked about the Morby method earlier, the reason why I want to do Morbies is so that I can take a seller finance deal and take that debt, because it's so hard to get debt in second position against a sub 2. So we're going to put the seller, a new seller on a new property, we're going to put them in second position behind a sub 2. So basically turning the seller into a private money lender. Mm-hmm. So all the deals we're negotiating, like this one we have, we're negotiating a 3% interest rate over 10 years. So like, where can you borrow private money? Is Amy still here?
I'm here.
Hey Amy, can I borrow 3% for 10 years? So it just doesn't exist. And she would not go in, like that debt in second position is 18 to 30%. So that's where we create value by putting that kind of debt in second position behind that. But the only other way to do it is just to refinance it. There are some second position lenders I've heard of doing 9 to 12% on that, but it's so expensive, like I would rather not.
Yeah. Fair. All right, can we give Robert a round of applause?